Yes, welcome to the No State Project. I'm your host, Marc Stevens, author of Government Indicted. Website, of course, markstevens.net. And you're listening to us here live from the Fortified Compound in Mesa, Arizona, where we are on the Liberty Radio Network. That's LRN.FN, baby. Glad to be with you here. And if you missed the last live broadcast, which was on Wednesday, definitely check it out. Go to markstevens.net. And also on my YouTube channel, No State Project, because we had a lot of really good stuff there. I have in the article now, I posted the document that we talked about on the show that's in the video. So if you go to the episode 31 of the No State Project, we have yet another piece of documentary proof. Just how effective using the Socratic method is to get these bogus tickets thrown out. I know on the forum, and yes, I will not be doing any more videos. The people have spoken. I am not going to do any more videos unless something really harsh comes out that needs responding to, but I'm not planning on doing any more. I think I've already nailed the coffin shut as far as how dishonest Wesley Serra from New York Attorney is. Those videos tend not to go... I thought they were educational, but they tend not to go anywhere, so apparently that's not... people have had enough. We already know that Wesley Serra is a dishonest man, and nobody should give their money to him. I get that. So it's no surprise he hasn't come back to, since I did my expose on him, that he hasn't been back to the forum. And so, sometimes there's that part of you that, just like it has to see an accident. You just want to see what stupid things some people will come out with. And so when I posted the article in the video with the documentary proof of Gadsden Viper, who had called a show where his wife's complaint was thrown out with prejudice. They had tried to smear me, saying that I was lying, that the appeal was thrown out, not the underlying ticket, by cherry picking. And that's why, one of the main reasons why I did the video and spoke about it on the air was because I think, people need to be able to recognize and know that these are tactics that are being used against us all the time. And we need to recognize it and call it out for the BS that it is, for the dishonest tactic that it actually is. And so when I posted this one, kind of part of me wants to... Here's another one that was tossed out. And I'd just like to see what stupid things will they come out with. Because, when they come out with those stupid things, we just catalog that and then we know what, we're not surprised. It's one less thing that can surprise somebody that's being attacked by these people. So you need to know, we need to know these things. But it comes down to being rooted in a Socratic method. You have to assume that everything these people are saying is a lie. And then question them. Because the worst you're going to do is they're going to verify that they actually have evidence and logic. They are actually making a valid claim. That, so, but when it comes to a government attack, people who call themselves government, they never have a legitimate claim against you, ever. And they can't. So know that whatever they're saying is a lie, and they will eventually contradict themselves. Like I mentioned on the Wednesday broadcast, I was talking about the Franchise Tax Board. This, no matter who's making the claim, we go about it the same way. It's all the same crap. That's why when people say, well, does it work in Canada? Well, if someone is BSing you and you want to bring out that they are BSing and you want to bring out the contradictions that they don't know what they're talking about, then yeah, the Socratic method is pretty brutal. I remember reading recently where some people, they talked about Socrates, and he would leave some people, who he was publicly questioning, just leave them an emotional heap, that it was just so, it was just so stressful to have somebody publicly asking you these questions about your beliefs and bringing out these contradictions and not being able to spin some crap on the fly. And even if you could spin something on the fly, some BS, he's going to catch you on it. He's going to catch you. That's why I recommend doing that. And anybody that would tell you that if you're being attacked by a bureaucrat, you're being attacked by one of these people, that you should not, what's the word they use, zealously. I borrowed that word from I think the attorney's ethics. To zealously challenge the arguments and claims being made against you. And of course that's what you want to do. And you don't want to give them a free pass. Why should they get a free pass? They're prosecuting you. Don't make their job easier. We are using the path of least resistance so that we can make as much resistance on their side as possible. Hey. But we're just asking these questions and assuming that they're lying, because most of the time they don't know what they're talking about. So, I've got to give out the call-in number. It's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020, and that their pound sign. And, I even did this before the show. If you can't call into a live broadcast and you don't have Skype, you can hit me up on Twitter at the Twitter account, of course. This is how people can know it's definitely me now. You can send a tweet to No State Project. That's No State Project. But you can also, Skype is Frank Rizzo 3. And somebody asked recently, I guess with all the stuff that's going on, for some reason, Frank Rizzo came up. I wanted to know why, of all things, I chose to use Frank Rizzo for my Skype name. And it's indirectly because of the real Frank Rizzo. It's because of the character based on Frank Rizzo that the Jerky Boys did. And because of my adolescent sense of humor and liking that kind of stuff, I thought it was funny. Always keep that alive. So that's why we do that. So whoever asked that, that's why. It's a Jerky Boys reference, because otherwise I probably never would have heard of Frank Rizzo before. But he was from all accounts, just a brutal police officer, and he was the mayor of Philadelphia, that he was a bully. In fact, there's actually videos of him bullying a news reporter, so wanting to fight him right then and there. So, that's what that's from. But if you're being attacked by one of these people because there's no evidence to support their claims, we can always feel very confident in challenging them and bringing out these contradictions. So like I mentioned before, it's not a matter of does it work in New Hampshire or does it work in Australia. We have documented success stories on markstevens.net. So yes, the Socratic method does work effectively if you use it correctly and effectively, has led to many, many dismissals. Many dismissals. And it will continue leading to dismissals until they become overtly authoritarian and just don't give a damn about even the appearance of justice. So while we still have some people as gatekeepers who want to see the appearance of justice and want some semblance of the rules, then we will continue getting these things tossed out. So... But again, the phone number here, if you want to reach me on the big show, is 218-632-9399. 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020, and you can hit me up on Twitter at No State Project and also on Skype at Frank Rizzo 3. And we'll be back in just a moment, so don't go anywhere. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. You want to reach me here on the big show. If you're being attacked by a bureaucrat, you need to learn how to effectively defend yourself with what we've been able to prove time and time again. And most recently, of course, that you can see at markstevens.net. Jeremy had gotten 3 charges thrown out. The prosecutor decided to withdraw the charges, and it was tossed out. So it was a long battle, but took over a year, but that was tossed out. But go to markstevens.net. I'm still available doing consultations, which includes calls to prosecutors and IRS and tax agents. So I spoke on the last show. I had a beauty of a call with the Franchise Tax Board. I'll get back to that. You can also, so the number here is 218-632-9399. Passcode is 2020. And you can get me on Twitter at No Stay Project, and Skype is Frank Rizzo 3. Someone just pointed out, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but before I get back into the court stuff, well, it all involves, we're always talking about court and the legal system here and how to defend against these animals. And speaking of one of those animals, Joe Arpaio. What a big surprise. The tough guy himself, the toughest man in America, the toughest and oldest sheriff in America, convicted of criminal contempt, where the evidence was pretty damn overwhelming. He got on TV and said he didn't care about what the judges order. He was going to continue doing what he thought was his job, which was stopping brown people and arresting them for being illegal aliens. He was convicted, and there was certainly a lot of evidence there to show that he did defy a court order. He even sent his men out to investigate Judge Snow, which anybody who's familiar with Joe Arpaio's office knows that retaliation by his officers is legendary. Hell, they even went after a comedian a number of years ago because they thought he was impersonating a police officer. I guess he had made comments that were derogatory. He made jokes about Joe Arpaio. So what do? You arrest him! So while he will publicly say, and act the tough guy, I didn't ask for a pardon. Yeah, right. Sure. Yeah, all of a sudden Joe Arpaio is a pillar of moral fortitude there, right? Yeah, right. Quite the ethical example, right? Yeah, sure. I have lived down here in the valley almost since he started his reign of terror. And yes, I have been in his Madison Street dungeon several times for traffic. And yes, this man and I know he's probably not the only one guilty of this, but you put nonviolent traffic offenders in with the violent offenders. Yeah, well, I know Joe was not the only one who did that because that was what was done to me in the dungeon off of Hobson or Robson, whatever, in downtown Mesa about 10, 12 years ago. Put me in with a guy that had admittedly shot someone. I was there for a traffic stop, and they put you in with violent people accused of violent crimes. Do they care? Nope. Not a thing. Not a single care in the world. They couldn't give a damn about you. And Joe Arpaio, don't let anyone fool you to think that he actually cares about people. No, I don't even buy this thing. He cares about white people. No, Joe Arpaio is your garden variety psychopath, or at least he has psychopathic tendencies. This man doesn't give a damn about anybody. And if you're accused of a crime, that's the thing. If you're accused of a crime and convicted by the court, he thought that instilled things that you are the lowest of the low. I don't think I'm being tough enough. He's the guy that said, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. So think about this for a second. This is what one of the things that disgusts me about this human being. If he really thought the courts were corrupt, then why was he so unyielding on the people that the courts sent to his prison? He never He and his people would never buy. No. The court was corrupt. They don't buy. They don't give a damn. You're convicted by the court. They take that as the gospel truth. Odin himself has said it. But when they go after him, when they finally do something to this disgraceful excuse for a human being, when they go after him after all these years, he didn't get to spend time in prison while waiting for trial. And I've seen firsthand what they call food at that place. I tell you, if you go into one of those Maricopa County facilities, if you weren't a vegan when you went in, you're going to have a damn good reason before you get out. The stories of the green food, the bologna and whatnot, and the rancid mayonnaise, those are true. I was there. That stuff is true. Yeah, I didn't suffer having my neck broken by those animals. I was not supposed to do that. I apologize by those disgraceful people. I was supposed to insult. That someone named Scott, it was Scott Norberg, who had his neck broken. There was also a case where somebody was put in a restraint chair. He couldn't use his legs when he got there, but they took him out of his chair, put him in a restraint chair, and then broke his neck, and so he was paralyzed from the neck down. These are the type of people that Joe Arpaio and works for Joe Arpaio. These are not nice people, and I can't help but see a comparison with what happened with a recent self-proclaimed atheist, anarchist a-hole who goes from tough guy and being able to just brush off somebody dying. Well, people die every day. And then this crying and sniffling, he's terrified of dying. Well, people die every day. Whatever. I can't see. I see that there's a comparison between these two. The difference is Joe Arpaio is still maintaining his tough guy facade. He can still do that. But I think it's disgraceful. But this is what and even if any criminal undoing is brought out in the Mueller investigation, all he's going to do is pardon everybody. It's all just for show. This is why screw the Libertarian Party, screw trying to vote people in, screw all that stuff. That's not how things are going to change. History is against it. We'll be back in just a moment, so don't go away.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, g'day, mate.
Good to hear you.
Good to hear you.
But I was having more technical issues.
All right, let me kill the feed. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. What did you say about tech issues?
I thought I was having more technical issues. The call was there was just silence for a little while.
Well,
but it's all good.
I'm the guy with the tech issues, but I can't. I'll thank you again on the air too. But man, that computer screams. I think I mentioned I could do a 1 hour 1080 HD video and have it render in just about an hour or less. Brilliant. That is. Wow, that is. I mean, I can't imagine a computer being so fast that it could do it, in a half hour or less. But that kicked. Oh, we're back here live on the air. I kind of really underestimated everything. Well, welcome back here to the No State Project. I'm Marc Stevens, author of Government Indicted, and the website marcstevens.net. Also available, the Twitter, I've been using that a lot more, so I appreciate that. I sent a call out to Calvin for convincing me of that. And it's No State Project, and the call-in number is 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020. And Skype, of course, is Frank Rizzo 3, but instant message me before you call. And I've got someone on Skype. He's been here before, and he's the guy responsible for the new equipment. And so welcome back to the show, Matthew, and you're from Brisbane, correct?
That's right. Yes. Hey, Mark, and hello to everyone else.
Again, I really appreciate it. I think I'm going to have everything squared away so that I can use the new computer for the Wednesday broadcasts. So we'll be streaming in HD.
Sounds good. So we'll have you on YouTube.
Yes, it will be on my No Stay Project YouTube channel.
Great.
Barring, even if I have to use two computers, because I remember last time trying to use a Windows and having it set up exactly like I have now, there was such a horrendous static from the caller line, it just wasn't usable. So I know somebody just said it was a Windows issue. I don't know. It may have just been the computer I was using, but I wouldn't think I would have such a problem with this machine. I mean, it's I've never seen a water-cooled home computer before.
Oh, okay. So. Yeah, that's yeah. Computer gamers like that kind of thing. So that is a thing. You can go and buy that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's something. So, again, yeah, I mentioned to you off air this when we were coming back on air that the last video for last Wednesday's show was just about an hour, and it took under an hour to render. Well, let's just say about 45, 50 minutes, which is smoking.
Yep. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So through the week, you posted something on Facebook about. I've got it here. I'll just read it. So for those who post about hating vegans, are you okay with torturing or hurting animals? And that kicked off a bit of a discussion on Facebook, and it sort of, I guess it was a predictable kind of discussion.
Yeah, what was I thinking? What the hell's wrong with me sometimes?
But it did get me, like, a few people jumped in on that, and it was, there's quite a few posts there if you expand various layers of comments. So, it seems to be a topic that people are, it motivates people to express an opinion. But
yeah, but it's always so hateful. It's always so derogatory. I mean, it was stupid of me, of course, for thinking that you could have a rational discussion on Facebook, and most people didn't even answer the question directly. It was just more pig piling on the vegan and hating.
Yeah. Well, that kind of that made me think of another situation in which people are, non-responsive and dismissive. And that's when you're going up against bureaucrats and what have you. And I'm thinking, at least some of these people have to be No State Project listeners. And some of them have probably been in a courtroom situation and they've faced bureaucrats and judges that are equally dismissive of what they're asking, when they're challenging jurisdiction. But here they are in this vegan conversation, having pretty much the same thought, the same kind of thought process in dismissing what you're asking.
Yeah, I've mentioned that too on the show. This is just a very graphic example of that. The same logical fallacies, which is usually just ad homs, are rolled out by people who proclaim to be anarchists or voluntarists, and you try to use that same exact ethic and moral standard that to be more consistent and show, and it brings out all the the status type of comments.
Yeah, and these are people who probably have tried to develop their own critical thinking skills and, exhort judges and bureaucrats to develop their critical thinking skills rather than just dismiss them for, I don't know, offending the church. And they get into a conversation like this and abandon their own critical thinking skills.
Yeah. You kind of think that some people, like the one I was just mentioning, who just had his moment in the sun, so to speak. You kind of question, well, was he an anarchist because of the moral aspect of it? Was it a moral position for him? And so I see that maybe it's just a trendy thing. It's just to be cool. Maybe it's just like Free State, something in the Free State Project. It's a way to see, girls take their tops off and smoke pot. It's not rooted in they didn't get there through critical analysis.
I know who you're talking about, and I'm not going to say his name either, but I think he just does it. He just tells people what he thinks they want to hear. He gets himself in front of an audience, whoever that might be, and it doesn't matter if they're, if he's in front of a libertarian audience, he'll say libertarian things. If he's in front of a, I don't know what they were. Let's just call them an alt-right audience. He'll say alt-right things.
Yeah, is it a populist thing just to make money? You're seeing where a trend is going, because there was another so-called anarchist, podcaster who seemed to be picking up on that a few years ago, and while he is rolling in Bitcoin and cash, maybe he saw that as an example of, this is where the trend is going. That's where the money's going. That's where the hits are. So I understand about being controversial, but I don't think you should engineer controversy that particular. I have no problem calling bureaucrats up or confronting them and then using that as some kind of, to educate people and to expose them. But what they were doing and what one continues to do, at least, is supporting Trump. Then that's come on, wasn't that a big clue as to whether they reached their position by critical analysis and logic, as when they started defending and telling people to vote for Trump? Wasn't that a big clue about these guys?
Yeah, there's something a little bit amiss there.
How can I look? I heard some of the things, and the logic is supposed to be this, which I don't agree with. The left is so unfathomably dangerous that if they are not stopped at all costs, or even slowed down, that we will be living in a dystopian nightmare. It's going to be Blade Runner soon, and so it just pushed the narrative that anybody but Hillary. Anyone, because she is going to be the next incarnation of Stalin, and and I don't want to use any names, because I don't want to bring any more attention to these people than they've already gotten, because they've saturated the internet with them. But when you've got people who are proclaimed anarchists, who are advocating that you actually vote for, especially that's a big clue. Whoa, put the brakes on here. Didn't you used to talk about how you're legitimizing the system by voting? What happened to that?
Yeah, I think that there's a point in there about just responding to the left, and perhaps even being triggered by the left-wing narrative. I'll just sort of bring this back to veganism.
Well. The left narrative. I'm going to have to put you. We have to just go.
Yep.
We're up against a break, so we'll pick up right from there. My name is Marc Stevens, talking with Matt from Brisbane, from down under there. Appreciate the support he has continued to give the show, and for everyone else, I don't have the time to mention it now. We'll be back talking about the left narrative in just a moment, so don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm Marc Stevens, author of Government Indicted. Get your copy today at marcstevens.net. A full model for replicating the success that we are able to regularly post at marcstevens.net, be it drugs, taxes, or traffic. Any code violation. We've had a lot of different types of code violations, so definitely check that out. I want to bring back Matt from Brisbane, because I got a couple things that I want to discuss too, but you were talking about the left narrative. We were talking about how the justification for Trump was that the left narrative was so dangerous, and you were tying that to veganism.
Yeah, I think that the left-wing narrative is received, very well by some people and received very poorly by everyone else. and I think it might be a contributing factor for, some people that just reject vegetarianism and reject veganism out of hand, is because they perceive it as a left-wing point of some sort.
Oh, I'd never seen that connection before. I guess because a lot of environmentalists and, I guess animal rights, and I don't believe in animal rights or human rights for that matter, are seen as, I guess that makes sense because it is, I haven't really thought much about that. I can see that.
Yeah, because it just seems to be like you give a left-wing talking point to somebody who just doesn't identify with that end of the political spectrum, and it doesn't matter what it is, you're not going to get a very constructive conversation out of them.
Yeah, well, you got problems on both sides, because the individual we were talking about, when he was in that documentary, the graphic on his shirt was a typical alt-right or even ANCAP pop. It is popular with ANCAPs, at least as far as Reddit. I'll say that the answer to leftist thinking is a helicopter ride, right? I mean, have you seen that?
Yes, seen that one.
And this, to me, gets at the heart of this. It's not a moral issue with someone like that. Because even if we can say, for sake of argument, that Pinochet, who was a brutal dictator, for those who don't know, would take communists and people who opposed him and have them go on a helicopter ride. Most of the time, they got thrown out of it. It was. I guess the first I'd heard something like that was where they were, maybe it was because of Pinochet why it was included in the movie Scarface, so with Pacino.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that is a bit of a departure from ANCAP, like a strict ANCAP sentiment. That's going the other way. That's going into right-wing politics.
Well, it just seems to be, if you go onto an ANCAP subreddit, that it's just something that's thrown around like it's a joke. Give them a helicopter ride,
But then there are some of those characters that might just take it a bit seriously.
Well, I think their thinking is that leftist ideology is so dangerous that the only thing you could do is kill them, is throw them out of a helicopter, or you have to have a white state, because white people tend to be so far more intelligent than other races that they don't. They can see through the nonsense of the leftist ideology. So you have to have a white state only to keep the lefties out.
There's I don't know how true it is. I don't, I'd have to live in America to really get a sense of this. But the black people are generally taken as, they're just presumed to be liberal Democrat voters.
Yes, and I think that with the individual we were talking about, and it's gone around, and even people saying, but it's science. Science says that non-white Europeans do not have the same IQ. It's science. I'm like, oh, good Lord. Well, where to start with that?
Apparently, there's global warming is science too.
Well, there is certain, but that's not
kind of science. It is.
But there's honest disagreements, I think, on both sides of that. But here they're trying to use what they say is science to say that non-European whites are less they're inferior intellectually, and that's why they accept leftist ideology so much, and that they have to be kept out, and you have to have a white state in order to avoid leftist policies. Now, there are going to be people on both sides that you can't reach them. But getting to a voluntary society to where freedom and the primacy of the individual and do no harm is the main rule is going to come through mainly education. And is it going to happen in the next couple of years? Probably not. I think if we're going to have something like that happen, it's going to happen because people who are truly anarchists, people who truly want freedom and have the means to get there, are going to just build the community themselves. That's part of the answer. You have to just build the community yourself. I got to tell you, smoking pot and wanting women to go topless, which is fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with those things, but doing things like that is not going to help bring about a voluntary society. You have to build it. That's why we talk about agorism or agorism. You have to actually build it. Where are the people in the Free State Project talking about how they actually plan to provide the basic services of a city like Keene and do that without forcing people to pay? How many times have you heard a discourse on that? How are they going to do that? How are they going to deal with the inherent problem of you have a monopoly on certain services? And I don't hear any logical voices or anyone really even addressing the problem with how do you avoid the issue of sanitation being or water supply? How do you avoid that from being, avoid that being a monopoly? So these are serious things that need to be taken into consideration.
I don't think I've heard those sorts of conversations either. I think those guys are entirely focused on getting the political, getting that political victory before they consider what comes next.
Yeah, I guess so. And that makes it more difficult to take them serious. And then with my experience with them, and again, this isn't all of them, of course, but it has to do with I've never agreed with this idea of getting elected and doing it that way. And so reaching out to the Free State Assemblymen, people who are politicians and not being able to get any help. But I want to draw attention to this thing back to the veganism thread, because the common thing that we hear is, I don't like these effing vegans with their moral superiority. I mean, let's break this down for a second. These people are self-proclaimed anarchists and voluntarists. Do they not hold themselves as morally superior to police officers or judges or lawyers? Do they not say that they are morally superior to the Nazis or to Antifa or these anti-fascists? Do they not think that they are not morally superior to leftists?
There was some hint of there's an assumption that extending the non-aggression principle to animals is giving animals rights, and that there was some intellectual disagreement about that. But I think that was still just avoiding the question.
It is. No one said, and I never said anything about rights. If anyone knows anything about me, they have to know that I am I've always said there's no evidence to show that there are political rights. There's no. We're not. And this. Look, there's sort of a misunderstanding, I think, of the non-aggression principle. The non-aggression principle is a moral or ethical principle. It says to do no harm, that aggression is wrong, that we use persuasion, we use logic to have people work with us and cooperate, not using violence. And there's it to me, and it's because it's like a I can't think of the word right now, but I see that was a common thing, that there's a couple guys that go, the non-aggression principle does not apply to animals. So you could be immoral if it's not a human animal. It's such logical inconsistency.
It's a convenient way to just carry on without thinking about your behavior and just doing what you think is. It's basically for pleasure. I like eating meat.
Well, we're up against a break, so I want to address that when we get back. So just hold tight, mate. You're listening to the No State Project here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM. 218-632-9399 is the number if you want to join me, and the passcode is 2020 and the pound sign. We'll be right back talking more about veganism and logical inconsistencies in just a moment. Yes, welcome back. You're listening to the second of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on the Liberty Radio Network. Anarchy because we reject the concept of rulers. Not no rules. We believe in the rule of aggression is wrong, not to hurt, treat others the way you want to be treated, that do no harm. And we believe that this applies to all, not just the unwashed masses, not just to the plebes. And there's the rub. It's to be morally consistent It applies to everybody. But I want to bring back Matt from Brisbane. And I think we were talking about this inconsistency and why people hating on vegans. So I think you were making a point, but I.
Well, I was going to say to set aside the issue some people might have with veganism, perceiving veganism as a pro-left message. There seems to be another point at which some people just can't have a rational conversation about veganism or consider being vegan. It seems that it's a threat to their identity, or that having a carnivorous diet is somehow connected to their identity or their ego or even their idea of manliness.
Yeah. It's the same thing with statism. People think that they are citizens, and they things get tied to that. There's emotional investment in there, and maybe somebody was in a war, and so there's that emotional investment, so they can't let go of that. Yeah, I agree. And people have this thing about the non-aggression principle too. It's almost like a religious devotion, but I don't. Have you ever seen where I think in that thread? And thanks for posting that in the Skype chat. I don't know how people arrive at this, but they actually say that the non-aggression principle only applies if the other person or the other actor is a moral agent. Now, have you heard that?
I think that came up in the thread. Yeah.
It is astounding to me how people could make such a stupid claim. It's so easily refuted when you talk to them, and that's the thing. I'd rather do it on the show than I'll never do it on Facebook again. Because if that's your if that's your moral compass, if that's your moral code, if that the non-aggression principle is sacred, unless the person you want to aggress against can't conceptualize morals and ethics. So
is a newborn infant a moral agent?
There you go. That debunks it right there. I have a daughter with Down syndrome. Does that mean it's okay to aggress against her? I mean, you can certainly try to do that and find out the hard way that it's not. And I just think it shows such a callousness. I thought the whole thing was supposed to be about do no harm, love one another, treat everyone the way we want to be treated, live honestly, injure no one, give every man his due. Oh, but you're not a moral agent? You know what? My answer to that is take your Ayn Rand worship and shove it right up your ass. How dare you turn around and proclaim to be for individual liberty and then say that the non-aggression principle only applies to moral actors and moral agents? Give me a break. Even it's so unbelievably stupid that we really shouldn't have to discuss it. But this is something that's coming up as an argument against veganism. Well, it's sad that that's the best that you can do. You want to justify. And then another thing, just give me a second here. The other part of this is to get around answering the question, just yes or no, are you for hurting animals? They try to, hurting them is senseless. It's not when we kill and eat them. Like, are you hearing yourself? You don't have to eat them. You don't have to do that. Not only is it destroying their lives permanently, but you're ruining your own health. Good Lord. So my position is it's senseless to torture, kill, and eat animals when you don't have to. I mean, am I wrong?
It sounds like a reasonable argument, if you want to call it an argument.
Okay. Yeah. If you don't have to do that to be healthy, then it's senseless.
Someone in the thread actually did bring that up. This is a quote: "Make a silly argument, get a silly response." So they, deliberately weren't taking your post seriously.
But I didn't. This gets back to what we were talking about before, Matt. In that they give the same stupid status responses. I asked a question. I didn't put forth an argument. I deliberately targeted a certain audience, for those who post hating vegans. Okay, are you okay with hurting? Yeah, and then I asked the question: how is that question an argument?
Yeah, that's what got me thinking about how did these people come to your Facebook page? Are they No State Project listeners? Have they had some experience in courts before? Have they gone up against bureaucrats in any situation? And if they can't sympathize with the hitting that brick wall, that bureaucratic brick wall, then there's something wrong. If they can't connect that brick wall they come up against with bureaucrats to the way they respond to you, there's something a little bit that just doesn't add up. There's a lack of critical thinking going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up and you quoted that, because I had not read that. I stopped reading that, and I posted to someone who I'm friends with off of Facebook. I just haven't seen him in a while. We jammed a number of years ago in San Diego. I told him I'm done. I learned my lesson. So I won't do it again. So I haven't actually looked at that thread. So I'm glad you said that, because it's exactly how IRS agents and prosecutors will respond to a question, and actually, well, to avoid answering the question. You just attack the nature of the question or say it's a frivolous argument.
To put it another way, if these people can't have a rational conversation with you, if they can't respond rationally to your, on Facebook, how can they expect bureaucrats to treat them any better?
Yeah. So make stupid arguments, expect stupid arguments in response. And as a response, if you don't come to the table with clean hands, how can you expect the other side to?
So yeah, definitely I think even if you don't want to be a 100% vegan, it's still a valid moral question to just contemplate and to consider quietly by yourself.
Sure, I think it's very easy. I was talking to a friend of mine, who had tried for a number of years to get me to see the inconsistencies in my habits, the way I live my life. And I said, I think it's really simple. If you are not okay with someone just walking up and abusing an animal, it logically follows you cannot be okay with slitting that animal's throat and killing it and then eating it. Especially when we already know that for the overwhelming majority of people, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to eat animals. So even if it wasn't detrimental to your health, it wasn't a health issue that it was so damning to your health, the fact is you don't need it. It's a needless killing. You are killing another living creature, and you have no good reason to do that. It's not attacking you. And that's did you remember, like in the thread? It's one of the other stupid things people come out with. They say, well, I'm sure if a bear was attacking you. Oh my gosh. I mean, do you work for the IRS? I mean, are you a prosecutor and you just say you're an anarchist? We're up against the break, so just hold on a second, mate. We're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, talking about logical consistency and how if you got to anarchy, it leads naturally and logically to veganism. We'll be back in just a moment, so don't go away. Yes, welcome to the No State Project here on the Liberty Radio Network. It's August 26, 2017, live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona, talking with Matt from Brisbane about veganism and how when we bring up issues of veganism, and even just asking questions, we get the same responses, same non-responsive and lack of critical thought from non-vegans that we do when we are attacked by a bureaucrat and we are asking them questions regarding their belief. And so because the ideology or the belief system that we are actually carnivores or that we're omnivores and that we are, we have to eat meat, because that doesn't hold any water, because it breaks down really fast, they have to then go into defense mode, and they have to make, I don't have a problem with veganism and the ideology. I just have a problem with vegans. And just imagine, Matt, people turning around and hearing, and what they would say, well, I don't have a problem with anarchy and voluntarism. I just don't like how preachy and how morally superior, anarchists and voluntarists or anarcho-capitalists think they are just because I'm a leftist. Because the ANCAP response to that would be, give them a helicopter ride.
Yeah, that doesn't exactly advance the conversation.
No, but even though I'm not going to post on Facebook, I mean, I'm on the air and I'm still willing to discuss, and I will still, promote that, and I will still show where veganism is a logical, ethically and morally logical goal, or for lack of a better term, of anarchy. So if you've gotten to anarchy or voluntarism because it's a moral position for you, it truly aligns with your moral compass, then you will inevitably get to veganism. You got to drop the defenses, though. So the same defenses that statists put up and bureaucrats put up, anarcho-capitalists or anarchists, voluntarists, you have the same ones.
I wonder how much of this rejection of veganism and the thought that there's something wrong with being carnivorous has to do with being so divorced from butchering animals. How many people actually do that?
Well, veganism is growing pretty fast, especially in places like England or Israel's probably the greatest rise in veganism in the world. It is growing. And it's growing at such a rate that you're seeing more and more of these ag-gag laws, and you're seeing more of these people going to the egg industry, the dairy one, are going to the FTC, where they want them to force companies that make like almond milk, to not be able to advertise it as milk, because it has to come from a bovine. It's only a bovine secretion. I'm like, but you've got goat milk. They want it limited.
I read something, this is maybe getting a little off topic, but I read something to the effect that almond milk was consumed before animal milk. Consumption of animal milk was popular and common.
I don't know. I don't know. It may be true. There's certainly a lot of evidence to show just how bad dairy is, bovine secretions are for you. Even if it's just the fact that there's allowed by law a certain amount of bovine leukemia. I mean, that's wow. There's a reason why the majority of the world is lactose intolerant, because after a certain point in time, your body's not designed to continue drinking milk and then to take it from another species. And this stupid thing that Joe Rogan said, well, yeah, we're the only species who jump out of planes and fly planes. Yeah, there's a reason, but that's you're talking about your diet, you moron. I did it again. You deal with stupidness. You can't help it. I apologize again for the insult. I shouldn't have said that. But where was I? Somebody's asking here, and this is something that I went through last year, because I had initially gone vegetarian for a week, and then Eyal of No State Project Israel, and big supporter of the show, he set me straight on this, because he said, so Marc is asking, do you think it's okay for a person to be a vegetarian but not a vegan? And I would say no, because for the same reason why you became a vegetarian is because you disagree with the maltreatment and killing of animals. The same goes for the egg and dairy industry, which has just as much death and mistreatment of animals as the meat industry. Well, you agree? You've heard.
would look for most of the supermarket sourced eggs and dairy. I'd have to give him that argument, but I think at least with eggs and dairy there is the possibility of not doing harm to the animal.
Well, you are, even if you're not artificially inseminating them, you are keeping them in a constant state of lactating. And that not only that will have a significant impact on their lifespan. And the same thing goes if you continually take the eggs from the chicken, they will lay more. And laying the eggs has a tremendous impact on the animal and does shorten the lifespan significantly, just like with dairy cows.
Yeah, well, your average egg-laying chicken is bred very specifically for that high egg output. That's just the mark that human consumption of eggs has had on those lines of chickens.
Yes, and we know because there's video about it that the male of that particular line of chicken, since they don't lay eggs, they are put into grinders while they're alive. It's horrible video of that, but that's a common. Or they're suffocated. They're put into a trash bag, sealed, and then they suffocate. So the meat.
Sure, I'd say that'd be true for a lot of mass production. But when you get onto what do they call that? Homestead production or small farm, small holding production. I'd like to think that the small producers are doing better than that.
Yes, but we're still not getting away from the fact that you are taking away from their lifespan, their overall lifespan. Even if taking the eggs and keeping them lactating all that time cuts that lifespan short. Especially with dairy cows. Cows are supposed to live about 20 years. The average lifespan of a dairy cow is about 4 to 5. So you're talking about 80% of its life gone. Well, we're starting to come alive here on the. We'll go another segment, and then we'll bring Jerry up. My name is Marc Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. If you've got an argument against veganism, we'd love to hear it. Welcome back to the No State Project. We're about halfway through this 3 hours of Anarchy radio here on LRN.FM. We're talking about the logical consistency of anarchy or voluntarism and veganism, how it's a logical progression there, or they're related logically, of course, the same ethical principle. So, and talking with Matthew from Brisbane, and we get this all the time. I forget where we left off, but maybe look, he's been on the show, and I appreciate the work he's done in defending against these bureaucratic attacks. I think he's got this dead wrong. Saying that just because we're able to digest meat, vegetables, and fruit as food makes us omnivores. That vegan animals can't digest meat and carnivores can't digest vegetables. I don't think that's true, and humans can do all. Therefore, omnivores. Being vegan is a lifestyle choice. Animals don't have empathy for each other. That's the thing. It doesn't matter, Matt, if the animals have empathy for. We're talking about us. And animals do have empathy for each other. There are videos and pictures of lions protecting a gazelle. One that where the mother had ran. So there is evidence of that. There, you have water buffalo. There was a video years ago. I don't know if you remember it, where I think lions were going after a water buffalo, and the rest of the herd came back and protected it. Have you seen that?
Okay. No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, so the idea that animals don't have empathy is wrong. I mean, that's just wrong. If anybody who has ever owned a dog.
Well, much earlier we brought up moral agency, and I think that was a bit of a spurious kind of argument. But do you completely discount moral agency in an animal like a guide dog?
That's a good point. And the idea, but the whole thing is debunked just by showing it doesn't matter if the other individual is a moral agent or not, because they could have Down syndrome, they could be in a coma. Doesn't mean it's okay to hurt them. But then he says, for someone to be vegan is fine with me, but stop trying to force your life philosophy on everyone else. No one's forcing anybody. We're just pointing out that this is logically consistent or morally consistent with the principle of do no harm and the principle of anarchy. Really, because anarchy is no rulers. He says it's kind of like homosexuals trying to force acceptance of their lifestyle by shaming and insults. You lose every time. That's not true. As far as when we point out that it's logically inconsistent, people do become vegan. I did. Calvin did, and some other people that I am familiar with, that I'm friends with and work with. So. It's not a matter of shaming, but what we're doing is bringing out an inconsistency in your belief and comparing it to your behavior. That's not shaming you. We're just having a discussion. And I think that is what happens. Look, it's no different than when we're talking with bureaucrats and they start to realize that, we're the baddies. You're not familiar with? Okay, anyway. You're starting to realize that look, I went through it too. We all have to go through this. It's just like giving up your belief in statism. You come to a realization that my principle, I'm conflicting with my own principle. I'm not being consistent. And so this thing, look, there's even a chart if you want to get, even if we were omnivores, it doesn't take away from the fact that it is immoral. We don't have to eat them in order to be strong and healthy and live our lives. So even if you give in, Matt, to the what's wrong biologically, that we're omnivores, even if you accept that, it still falls or fails the ethical challenge, right?
Well, I think, if you want to say omnivore, then make a moral choice.
Well, sure. It doesn't excuse you from the moral choice, of course. So you could go through and show biologically. You can look at there's a lot of examples of this. You can look at an example of saliva. Carnivores have no digestive enzymes. Omnivores have no digestive enzymes, and herbivores have carbohydrate digesting enzymes in the saliva. Hey, guess what? We have carbohydrate digesting enzymes in our saliva. You can also go to the fact that our intestines are much longer than a true carnivore or omnivore. The stomach acidity is a pH of 1 in a carnivore or an omnivore. The pH for stomach acid in a herbivore is 4 to 5, and humans are 4 to 5. So even if you can't make the argument ethically and morally, and you cannot make the argument even biologically. We are not carnivores. The fact that we have canine teeth, it's the position of the canine teeth. I mean, we have cats. A canine tooth can puncture skin pretty easily. We're not canines. Hell, it says here, for teeth, carnivores have sharp, jagged, molars. Omnivores have sharp blades and may be flattened, but herbivores only have flattened. And, of course, our molars are flattened. We're not carnivores. We're not omnivores. And like we've already discussed, as moral agents, we have the choice to make. Are we going to kill needlessly for our taste? Or are we going to be consistent with our principles and do no harm, and we don't kill and torture needlessly? Did I lose you?
No, sorry, I'm still here. I think I've explored this about as far as I can.
It's just going to be more of the same crap when people disagree with the argument, with the principle. They're just going to find, don't tell me what to do, is what it comes down to. Well, we're not. I'm not saying everyone should give up meat. Everyone should. What I'm saying is, if you are eating meat, you're being morally inconsistent if you hold do no harm as a core moral principle. That's all we're doing. It's not forcing anybody.
Yeah, and unfortunately, what we keep seeing is a lot of mental gymnastics.
Yeah, Yeah, this and this it's the so some of these people who pigpiled and made these ridiculous comments on Facebook. Don't be surprised if you are attacked by a bureaucrat. And I'm not saying I want that, but don't be surprised if you start asking questions and challenging their worldview. If you hear the same crap back, same process, different content, when you go against them, because that's exactly what they're doing. Deal with the principle. And if you're going to show that the principle is wrong, show where it is wrong. Don't come out and say, don't preach to me because I'm not preaching. That's another thing. There's nothing religious about the content of the show. And I've never heard of vegans talking about it, that it's a religious thing. I'm sure some do, but I don't get that. So I don't like when they say preachy. You automatically have to, try to put a spin on it.
I guess they hear any kind of questioning and they just throw you in with everybody else that has presented veganism to them.
Yeah. It's a basic principle of do no harm. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And you can have but bacon. So I remember a number of months ago somebody said, but bacon tastes so good, I can't help it. So I had to take his quote and put those words over a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer. Except for bacon, I said humans. Oh, but humans taste so good, I can't help myself. It's yeah, and I'm sorry.
No, that's a good way of feeding it back to them.
Yeah, well, we do the same thing with bureaucrats. When they say that they don't need evidence to argue, they don't need evidence to support their argument, we just go back to them. Oh, so I don't need evidence if I'm going to argue against you. Oh, all of a sudden they did defend. Oh, no, that's not right. Well, hey, it's been a great conversation. I do appreciate it. I do have to get some other calls, and always good to have you on, May, and to talk about veganism. And again, I do appreciate your support of the show.
Great. Thanks, Marc.
Hey, you have a good one. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I apologize for that. And let's see where we are here. Yeah. So that'll all be edited out of the podcast. So we'll get the podcast, hopefully, at least the initial one, posted right after the big show today. And we will be live for August 30th. Will be episode 32 of the live edition of the No State Project. The what we call there the Wednesday edition is commercial free. So even though it's only an hour, it's a lot more content. It's about half the content we get for the 3 hours here on LRN.FM. So if I am not able to get to you today because I was busy, I was distracted, so I can't bring the callers up just yet. So I do apologize. I know we've got Will in Minnesota hanging on. And I wanted to get up here. I didn't hear back from Jerry. So let's see if we can get Jerry on. I will mute that and see if we can get Jerry on. He was the one up after Matt. But the whole thing with when we talk about... All right. Jerry, we have Jerry?
Yeah.
Hey, Jerry, welcome to the show. You're on the live... yeah, you're on live. Where are you calling from?
Colorado.
Jerry in Colorado. What do you got for us today?
Well, I purchased your dismissal letter, and I just got some questions.
Well, you're gonna have to be a little clearer. Maybe you're not next to the microphone, or it's very difficult to hear you.
Oh, okay. I'll just pull up a little closer.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that works.
That's better. Okay.
Yeah, that works.
So I've been listening to your show for a while, and I believe in everything you do, and I've talked to a lot of people for many years about this stuff. I never really got the chance to use it, but now I have it. So I just have some questions. Is there a specific series of questions I should ask the judge?
Well, I have a script that goes through that, and I've made some recent updates to it. But yes, there are a number of questions you want to ask. And the principal thing that we're going after is we want to know if the prosecution has met their prima facie burden to prove that the laws apply just because you're physically in Colorado. That's our main concern when we go in.
Okay. I've listened.
Yeah, I'm losing you again.
I have your questions that you asked the officer, and I've done a really good job at remembering those. But how would you bring up the prosecutor's threats, like when the judge asks you anything about the prosecutor? I'm sorry, my train of thought's going wrong. When you talk with the prosecutor and they offer you a deal, I got to turn the radio off in the background. Sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, so when you go in and you talk with the prosecutor, they offer you a deal, and then when you go in front of the judge and they ask you anything about if you've been threatened or coerced, how would you bring that up to the judge that the prosecutor threatened you?
I would tell him point blank, yeah, the prosecutor threatened me. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be one of the first things I said. Yeah, I think that's kind of a no-brainer. Just tell him, this man threatened me.
Okay. And then...
have you been threatened by a prosecutor, or is that you just...
I have in the past.
Jeez, what do they say?
They just said...
Yeah, you gotta fix that again.
Okay. They just say that if you go in and do the trial...
Yeah, I can't make it out. You're going to have to fix whatever you did before. Now, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to mute Jerry back up, and I can't hear anything at this point. Maybe what we could do is have you give a call. Yeah, we'll have Jerry call back at the caller line is 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399, and we can get Jerry back on. Yeah, obviously, if a prosecutor is going to threaten you, write it down, and definitely bring that to the judge. As corrupt as they are, they tend not to overlook a threat from the prosecutor. They're not going to do anything to the prosecutor. Prosecutors, this is why if anyone ever says there's no oligarchy in the U.S., they're dead wrong. Well, Canada, most places have it. Prosecutors can basically do whatever the hell they want, and they might lose their job, but they're not going to go to prison. I mean, look what Joe Arpaio did. The man destroyed lives, had a callous disregard for other people who were brutalized by the court system. He didn't give a damn back then. Oh, he'll rail against the courts now. Oh, because he was the one. It was him. But his inability to see that for other people shows a psychopathic tendency. Not giving a damn. Yeah, I still have some background noise, almost like, do we have Jerry back on? Yeah, I can't hear anything. So Jerry's going to have to, I don't know if we got Jerry back here. Let's give it a shot. Well, we're going to have, maybe just delete this whole segment. See, area code 970, is this Jerry? I don't know what's going on, so I'm going to mute that back up. We've got Will in Minnesota. Will, welcome back to the No State Project. Oh, I understand. So, Will, I have to apologize. This is actually my fault. I never connected to the caller line, like I mentioned, so that's why I can't hear anybody on the caller line right now. So, I'm probably going to... Oh, yeah. So let me just, I want to get back to this, and I apologize to everybody. Wow. So Jerry in Colorado, we're talking about if the prosecutor threatens you, you should definitely write it down and bring that to the judge. Again, like I mentioned, it doesn't mean that they're going to do anything to. He's not going to lose his job or anything because there's a different set of rules for them. But hey, you could get a dismissal, and you should get a dismissal out of it. But I got a number of people that are going into pretrial conferences with these prosecutors, and I cannot I tell you, you cannot overestimate the importance of this. Make sure you have a notepad with you so you can write down what the prosecutor says, because this is your opportunity to. They can't just sit there like, oh, they can, but they typically don't sit there like a statue. They want to make a deal. So this is where you get the opportunity to ask the questions and put them on the spot. And we want to know because we're going to attack the foundation of the prosecution's case. We always do the same thing. They believe that just because you're physically in Colorado, their rules apply to you. We want the evidence to prove that that's true. And just like with this Tiffany Castillo, we are then able to take their statements. If they don't dismiss or throw us a really good deal, then we could take their statements and quote them in a motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct. So we know that arguing, I used the Shaw case. You can see that all over the last few articles. Arguing without evidence is prosecutorial misconduct. We also have Rule 3.1, which is the ethical rule for the professional conduct for these attorneys. And it states that they may not raise or defend a claim that is not based in law and fact. Okay, it's got to be factually based. Has to be based on fact. Just like this stuff that if you're going to claim that we humans are actually omnivores, you got to have some actual evidence to prove that, and there is none. What we do know conflicts with it that shows that we're herbivores. So, and another thing, your carnivores and your omnivores, they don't get atherosclerosis from eating meat, eggs, and dairy. Only herbivores get atherosclerosis from eating dietary cholesterol. So, all right, I will fix the tech issues. We will be back here in just a few moments, so don't go away. Welcome to the third of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM. And coming live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. It is August 26, 2017. We will also be live for episode 32, and that should be on the YouTube. My YouTube channel, No State Project, August 30th. Thanks to Matt from Brisbane for making that possible. So to Calvin. And I do appreciate Eyal and Nelson and everyone who does help support the show. I do appreciate that. I don't think I'm going to give out the call-in number because, hey, we are lined up because I was made a disaster of the last segment. But I believe this is where we left off. We have area code 970. Is this Jerry?
Yes, it is.
Hey, that's much better. So I'm going to have to delete that segment. But all right, so we were talking about, yes, you definitely want to let the judge know that the prosecutor threatened you. Write it down. So I was asking you before, how were you threatened by a prosecutor in the past?
Well, they give you I'll give you this and I'll drop those charges, careless driving and such, if you plead guilty to, another charge. And, it's a lie both ways, and I'm just wondering how you would bring that up to the judge.
I don't think that would necessarily qualify as a threat. I think what qualifies as a threat is when they say, if you don't take this deal, I'm going to have to hit you with even more charges. For what you described, sounds like a typical prosecutorial move to get someone to plea. Yes, it's not true, but it's not going to be grounds. His dishonesty there is not going to be grounds to have it tossed out. It's the same as like when a police officer thinks he's being a nice guy by, instead of writing you for 85 in a 65, he writes you up for a 71. They're not going to, at least in my experience, throw it out because the cop did that.
Okay, so that's something you wouldn't bring up in court?
I think it's easier to go through and challenge him on the foundation, like why, his idea, his claim that there was probable cause to stop you, that just because he saw you in Colorado, the laws applied, and that gave him jurisdiction and probable cause to stop you. I know from experience that they won't even let him answer questions regarding that. They'll impeach him for us by declaring him incompetent. So I think it's better to go that way. You can show. I don't think you're going to convince a judge. I think it'll just come off as a bad move because, well, look, I think from the standpoint of a judge, if he's going to see that the cop did you a solid favor by not writing you up for 85, and so I think he's just going to still find you guilty, because it may not be his saying it was 71 instead of 85. I don't think the judge is going to think it's enough to impeach his credibility as a witness and throw it all out.
Okay.
I mean, come on. Even I wouldn't think that that is a reason to call the police officer's credibility into question if he did something like that, especially since it's such a common thing. Now, not being able to support his claim that there was probable cause, that's big. You knock out the foundation of probable cause, and that's great. That'll hold a lot of water. But this other one, no.
Okay. So in the wording that you used to question the police officer, like, did you determine on your own that because I was physically in Colorado that the laws and Constitution apply, and you had jurisdiction to arrest me? That question?
Yeah.
Those two questions, do you have to use that exact wording, or can you just get it close?
Well, it depends. You don't want to change the substance of the question, because what you're trying to do is get him to admit that he made a legal determination that the laws apply to you because you were physically in Colorado. That's what you're getting at. So you have to look at what's your follow-up to that. So if you change the context of that, then it could hurt your follow-up question.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's a magic question, but you have to ask the right question to be effective. Okay, there's no magical number of words that you're supposed to say like the Patriots used to think. It was like when you're dealing with the IRS and for and on the record. You don't have to say that. I've seen transcripts of people saying that every single thing they said, they prefaced it with "for and on the record." It is. Yes, you are looking for a certain admission from him. It has to be in the question. It's a leading question. So it's very important that you don't change the substance of the question.
Okay. Okay, well, I think that kind of answers my questions. Thank you very much, Mark.
Oh, okay. Well, before I let you go, do you have something coming up?
In a week and a half, I have to do traffic court.
Okay.
And then after that, I have a criminal case.
Wow. Is this stemming from a traffic stop?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been doing role-playing in the Skype chat?
I have not, but I need to set up a time for that. That would be through email, correct?
No, you can hit the on upcoming events under.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a link under there that takes you directly to the Skype chat. If you have a problem, you can always Skype me, and then I can put you in. We have actually 380 people, but not everyone is active. There's only a couple, maybe a dozen or so at any one time, and so there's usually a marathon session that takes place after each show. So just post in there that, hey, this is Jerry from Colorado. I need to do some role playing, and then they'll invite you into another room, and you guys can start hammering it out. And I would do that as often as you can, at least get an hour or so a day in prepping for that. So that there should be no surprises. Now, do you know what a leading question is as opposed to a non-leading question?
I think I have a good grasp on it.
Okay, what's a leading question?
A leading question would be like, just to clarify, you said this, this, and this. That's a leading question, correct?
Yes, that's a leading question. The information you're trying to elicit is in the question.
Okay. And you just want him to say yes or no, correct?
That's right. And so, what if instead of saying yes or no, he starts giving you a narrative? What do you do?
I rotate back to asking if it was just a yes or no. I'm just looking for facts and evidence.
Well, when he starts giving you a narrative, this is where it's proper to interrupt him and say objection. So the first word out of your mouth should be, unless you're asking the question on cross, should always be objection. Say objection, narrative. Please instruct the witness to be responsive and answer yes or no.
Okay.
He's just avoiding the question. So you got some role playing to do because you failed that, which is fine because you still got time to prep. But that's why we do this. It's all about empowering you and giving you the tools necessary to be effective when you do go in there. So you have to be able to recognize when you're not getting a responsive answer. And so you can listen to my call, Shane's, for that. And I think a really good example is her name Sanders. She's a deputy White House spokesman. There's a recent video of her where she's asked multiple times to answer the question, and she just won't answer. So that, and also watched, what's her name, Kellyanne Conway. She is a political master at avoiding answering questions. So check things like that out so that you're more familiar with how these people do that, and the role-playing will certainly help to that end. I am glad we were able to connect. My name is Marc Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. We'll be back with your calls in just a moment, so don't go away. Welcome back to the No State Project, August 26, 2017, live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. Glad to be with you here. We've got, he's been on the show before, we got Will in Minnesota. Will, welcome back to the big show.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well. What do you got for us today?
Well, it's a little bit out of the normal. It's a tax thing, but what it was is I was forcefully retired because I got injured on the job, so I drew my pension. And because I drew it all in one chunk, they took 20% off and set it to the feds.
How is that a little? Okay, yeah, it's just that's we talk about that stuff all the time. That's a typical topic here on the show. So you had me concerned there for a moment.
Oh, no. So my thing is more on procedure. I mean, I tried calling the IRS and everything, and you just can't get through. They send you back to and it's an automated line.
Right.
And it's kind of frivolous in its own.
Well, was there an outstanding lien already against you?
No.
Was there?
No, this is just because I drew it all at once. They took 20% off the top.
Ah. Gee, I know you emailed me. That is horrible.
Yeah.
Well, like I mentioned in an email, what sucks is that it is far easier, technically, from a technical standpoint, to get money they've stolen back than to try to stop them from stealing it in the first place. Because for those who aren't aware, there is, even though there's technically a remedy to stop a tax agency from stealing your money, we've not ever been able to get the courts to acknowledge it. And what sucks is in Minnesota, if you're doing anything at the state level, they're getting your money one way or another, because every time you file in Minnesota, this is the state court, by the way, it's a $550 filing fee. That's the highest I've ever seen.
Right. That wouldn't. Well, this is going to the federal because it's an out-of-state pension. Because the pension was housed in North Dakota, and when they took the money off the top, and it's got right here, it was like one of those administrative plans for pensions and whatever. But they've got a thing here that says you may wish to consult a plan administrator or payee, or payer rather, or tax advisor, and they're going under federal tax treatment of payments, IRS publication 575. So I didn't know if I should, I contacted them. They say that they're obligated under the law to shoot that off to the Fed. But my question is now, because, calling the Fed, you can't get through. They keep shooting you back to the website.
Right.
So who actually do I need to get a confirmation number from the plan administrator saying that they assigned some kind of a confirmation number on that money sent? Or
you may be stuck going to a local office to be able to get an appointment with an agent.
Right, but it's not a state thing. It's a federal thing.
Yeah, you may have to go to a local IRS office.
I'll have to look that up then and find out where they're at.
Yeah, and it sucks that sometimes it comes down to that. And sometimes we have to bite the bullet and we have to get in touch with the taxpayer's advocate because there's no other way to communicate with them. Now, we don't know that it'll get to that point, but it unfortunately, it's been getting worse and worse and worse to communicate with that agency.
Yeah, because I just had a little thing that I dealt with on my own as far as property tax, and I got the guy to back off, and he still hasn't gotten back to me. So I'm not worried about calling him or talking to him and using Socratics against him. It's just this one, I don't know where to go. Which agency am I trying to get to, and you can't get through to the Fed.
Well, what I would do when we're trying to get in touch with these people at the IRS is I like to get a statement if possible, and I'll tell you right up front, they don't like to do this. But to get a statement from the company who sent the money over that they did it to avoid going to jail. They did it because they had to, not because they thought that it was required. They're just doing what they were told. See, that was what...
Okay, so I can...
Well, see if you can get that.
The administrator.
Yeah, see if they're willing to do that. I know that with the Franchise Tax Board really torqued this woman last week, and what was her name? Fida. She did not like when I pointed out that they had terrorized these companies to a point that they were just afraid to even write the statement down that they did it because they were forced to. Right. That they didn't do it willingly. They won't even say that. So most companies are so afraid of these taxing agencies that they won't even write the truth. We only did this to avoid being punished, to avoid being, prosecuted. So there's no legitimacy to this. They don't want to do it. So that's where I would,
right.
So get in touch with them and say, look, are you willing to sign a statement that the only reason why this was done was to avoid being prosecuted. It wasn't done because you thought that these laws applied and that I owed this.
Right. Yeah, because you and I had done a call of shame and talked to these people from, where they had called and forced my employer to change my W-2 and all this other stuff.
That's right.
Years ago.
Yeah, that was actually really good. I can't remember her name, but there was a woman involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, the name escapes me. And I actually took a picture of the head of the agency and used that. With the video. So I remember. It's heartbreaking. I mean, it sucks. 20%. Of your pension. That really, really sucks. I tell you,
it was over $13,000.
Oh, you don't have to give the amount. That's not important. Any amount is bad, but don't make me feel worse by saying how much it was. I hate to see that happen. I will tell you that unless they've changed the law, and I can't say for sure that they have, but no, there's no lien involved, so never mind. What you'd want to do is we want to be able to contact them, and we probably have to start in writing. We may not be able to contact an agent, but if we can get an agent, we want to get a record showing that the agents are unable to present any evidence to support their claim that there was jurisdiction to require this of you. And then after that, if they don't give the money back when you request a refund, you're not going to be filing a return, of course. Then at least you have grounds to go into court. And the two biggest tools that they have against us to defeat claims against them in court aren't applicable when you're trying to get the money back, and that is sovereign immunity and the Anti-Injunctive Tax Act. Those are the two worst things that keep us from holding these criminals accountable, at least to some degree.
Right. Well, I haven't filed any taxes of any shape or form since like '96.
Nice.
So I'm pretty well, I mean, I'm pretty good at dealing with the state level, but this turned into a Fed thing, and I haven't talked to the Feds in 20 years.
I'm envious of that, my friend. Well, look, hold on. We'll finish in the next segment, so don't go away. My name is Marc Stevens, talking with Will in Minnesota about the Feds stealing 20% of his pension. Hopefully we have remedy to get that back. We'll be back in just a moment. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on the Fortified Compound. It's August 26, 2017. We'll be live next Wednesday, of course. Hopefully it should be an HD stream finally, thanks to Matt from Brisbane. And that'll be August 30th, and it'll be on my YouTube channel. That's No State Project, which is the same as my Twitter, so you can also reach me on Twitter. I am using that on a regular basis now, and it's also No State Project. We're talking with Will in Minnesota, who had 20% of his pension stolen by the Feds, and so we're talking about how the remedy to get that back. You can file a request for the money to be returned without filing an actual return, like a 1040 form. And then if they don't give it back, then you have grounds to then bring it into court to get the money back. But we've got to have our facts straight. We can't just say, hey, this is wrong. We can't do like what they do. We have to actually have some evidence to show that there was nothing required. They had no evidence to support their claim that you were required to do that, or even that the company was required to aid and abet them in the theft.
Yeah, when I was talking to one of the administrators, believe it or not, her name is Angel. She was quite insistent that that's what they had to follow.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I mean, it's the only time they get, there's a disagreement will be with an apologist or one of the state, one of the tax agents themselves. They don't like when you hit them in the face with reality that they are forcing these companies to do it. I told you we had FIDA at the Franchise Tax Board tell me no, and then we had what was the other one that I mentioned? It was FIDA. FIDA was the one. I'm sorry, it was FIDA. I got the name right the first time. She was the one that agreed it was compulsory that and we're talking about the reports, the financial reports, which the financial reports are required, or they're just as compulsory as giving the money over. And so even though she initially agreed that yes, it was compulsory, that they had to do that when I used the word force. So you agree that you forced them, that these reports are forced. And she didn't like that particular word because it sounds worse. Compulsory, it doesn't have nearly the stank on it that force does. So she actually said, well, no, we didn't force them. Really? So they don't like to hear that. And so hopefully Angel or someone down there is willing to give you a statement that says, look, we had to do this. We had no choice. It's not because and they should be very clear, we didn't make any legal determinations against you. We're only doing what we're being ordered to do.
Right. So I guess my stuff is cut out for me for the next week. I got to call them up and see if I can get that in writing.
Yes. I'll tell you that almost every company we've asked to get this from has been so, and they'll tell you point blank, no, we can't do this. No, we can't. They're too afraid. We had one in New York do it, and when it was in court, because this was unfortunately it was a matter that was in tax court, which my views on that.
Right.
I spoke to the attorney for district counsel for the IRS, and he was furious. He wanted it withdrawn. He says, you cannot present that. That has to be withdrawn. Yeah, good luck with that.
Right.
I don't know if the guy was serious or not. He came off like he was raging. The thing was, it wasn't you can't win in a tax court. So I don't know why he worried so much about such damning evidence against them. You can't win in a tax court. That's just the way it works. Nobody wins. So. So I hope you can get it. I really do. Because they hate it. Because the last thing that they want to do, funny enough, is they don't want to take responsibility for making the determination to take your money.
Right. Well, I had several recordings talking to him, and I've got some of the stuff. I'll have to go through it and kind of weed it out. But I'd asked him point blank. I says, you're applying something to me that you don't even have any verification it's true.
Well, good point.
I said, you're just forcefully taking my money and sending it to another agency, and they didn't send you any forcing letter to get you to comply or anything. You did it on your own.
I gotta disagree with you there, though. There may not have been a notice of levy or a lien that was sent to them, okay? But there is a statute and a regulation that they have to do that.
Right. And that's what they're going under.
Yeah. And the point you made before was really good, that you're doing this and you're not, you want to not make it a statement, though. You still want to phrase it as a question.
Right.
So you ask them, so just like what I did with Fida in LaFonte, that you always do in the form of a question. So your position is you have to do this, but you're not qualified to make such legal determinations against. Or wait, you're forced to do this, and you're not making any legal conclusions against me.
Right.
Yeah, so you want to get out that they are not the ones making the determination. And that's what's, look, it's happened before, but this woman at the Franchise Tax Board turned it around saying my issue is with the IRS. They didn't make the determination, did they?
Yeah.
They may actually say that they're not, like with the FTB, that the IRS is not responsible for them sending the money. If it was sent in error, if the company should not have sent it, then they'll return the money. Then it really may hinge on the company reversing itself and saying, look, we didn't make this determination. We only did it blindly because we don't want to go to jail. I like to think that the IRS would be consistent and accept that, but that's yet to be seen.
Yeah, how can you trust criminals?
You can't. And that's why we have to have pretty damning evidence against them. That's why I'm very clear that we have to write down what they're saying and feed it back to them later or to a supervisor. These are your words. So,
right. Well, I got a couple of things here that I'll probably, one thing, it's just the plan that the stuff that they sent me. It's like a 6-page with all their tax stuff on it and blah, blah, blah. Just a bunch of rhetoric. And I think there's only probably one paragraph out of the whole thing that means anything, that actually gives a clue to where they're doing or why they're doing or what they're doing. And then it's also got the numbers of the people to contact. And I think what I'll do is I'll put through a consulting fee and see if we can't work this out.
Well, it's worth a shot. But definitely, we're going to have to get in touch with someone eventually. It'd start right away, Monday or Tuesday. Trying to get some contact with the IRS.
Well, now do I need to get a hold of the administrator of the plan, the actual people that hold the money, that had the money anyway? Because now there's no more money in their possession. It's all gone to me, and they pretty much can't, they're cleared of anything so far. So this would be going back on what they did, not what they're doing.
Well, you want to find out who's responsible for doing it. Somebody, so that we can get some admissions that they did it blindly, not that they were making determinations of federal law against you.
Right. I talked to one of their lawyers, and the first question well, who gives you authority?
They said that. They said that to you?
Yeah.
What the hell? How? What a stupid question. You need authority to question people based on the fact that you just lost a significant amount of your money? And you need to have some kind of authority in order to ask questions and investigate?
Well, that was the lawyer from the Klan.
Yeah. I get that. That sounds. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, he was a douchebag.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I got some more other calls to get to, and we're out of time for this segment. Hey, I appreciate it, and contact me off air if you need me to help make some calls.
Sounds great, Mark. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. My name is Marc Stevens. We'll be back with the Nation State Project in just a moment, so don't go away. Welcome back to the big show. We're in the last segment, but there'll be more of the No State Project on August 30th, episode 32 on Wednesday. Should be on my No State Project YouTube channel, so we will have thanks to Matt and Calvin, have an HD stream of the big show. So check that out. So if we're not able to get to anybody today, call in on Wednesday. So let's go to, he's been on the show before. We got Tony in Los Banos, California. Welcome back, Tony.
Look how you doing, pimping the Bronx.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I don't know how much pimping I'm doing, though.
Man, with all the calls that you're doing, I think that you're doing pretty well, man. It's good to hear about you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, and I appreciate people subbing to my YouTube channel. It's growing slow, but it's growing.
Yeah, that it is. I've been checking you out and been keeping tabs with you on Facebook, and I don't know how much longer that's going to keep going, but hey, you got my support, brother.
Hey, I appreciate that. I'm still posting on Facebook as far as the promotion of the show. So my videos and the show articles and pictures from the videos, because I've been pretty good the last few months at getting pictures of these bureaucrats. So I don't want them just in the video. Obviously, I want when people do a search, they go to YouTube and type in John Crescetti. Yeah, I think it's great that my video comes up, but I also think it's a good idea to post them on Facebook, and I post them in the articles so that the pictures themselves will come up on a Google search also. So when you actually type into Google Wesley Serra, my video and my articles come up, my pictures come up. So even like when you go to Google and you look him up, if you go to images, my images of him will come up, and it says habitual liar. So So, yeah.
Not pointing any fingers, but,
Hey, I have the evidence, though, Tony. I mean, I'm not making... when I said he was a disgraceful New York lawyer because he was cherry-picking, I got the goods on him. I will never post something negative about somebody unless I have the evidence, and I can prove that this man's a habitual liar. He said, like, for example... every time the courts have ruled on my motion, it's been rejected. And so I can show example after example after example. He's lying. And then he just has to make excuses. But I tell you, for this one where I caught him cherry picking, where he really made me look bad momentarily, he hasn't come back.
And it's funny how you put that as far as them habitually lying or saying that they're doing so under the guise of, well, we have the discretion to do so. I don't know if you received any of the notices that I sent you, but there are 2 examples on YouTube of the Los Banos City Council meetings that I attended to. And I posed the questions to the mayor and the city attorney himself, and it was almost as if the collection plate in church came along, and they decided to go ahead and pass the buck over to the police chief. And, well, if you have any questions of that nature, they would be more than happy to go ahead and answer those for you.
Oh, well, you're going to have to resend. I'd like to see that. I don't remember seeing that. I would have posted it, at least on the forum. Did you actually go through the motions and follow up with the police chief? Because they told me the same thing in Tempe, and he absolutely refused to speak to me.
Yes, I actually, the very next day, ended up going on over and speaking with the police chief. One was dated for January 18th of this year, and the other one was for May 19th of this year. And I posed the questions to him, just because I'm physically in California, what proof do you have? And they basically sat there and they backpedaled as fast as their feet could move. And well, we don't believe that it's okay to break the law to enforce the law, but if you have questions, you can go ahead and speak to the police chief. And okay, I understand that, but these are my issues, and this is what happened. How is it that you guys can justify, or where can you say that you have the evidence and proof just because I'm physically located here that this applies? And just to give you a current update on where this all stemmed from is, I don't know if you remember or not, I'm currently in battle right now in civil court for my Jeep being stolen in front of my property with Los Banos Police Department. And I'm dealing with a high-powered attorney out of Fresno by the name of Gregory Myers. And this gentleman just last week gave me a notice in motion for summary judgment for bad faith pursuant to Civil Code 1038 and memorandums and points of authorities. He has so-called, what are these, undisputed material facts in support of the judgment for summary judgment. I mean, this guy is doing everything he possibly can, but yet when I gave him discovery for just a simple, where is your proof that what the officers did, where's the proof that they had jurisdiction? Where's the proof that their rules, laws, codes apply to me just because I'm physically in California? And he totally sidestepped that whole issue.
How did he try to sidestep it?
Well, because of the simple fact that, number one, he's not providing any discovery. Number two, that my argument or my so-called view is frivolous. That keyword starts with a F. And basically everything that he's saying, as you stated in one of your earlier videos, well, he's conflating stare decisis with res judicata. He's saying that these things apply to me, or that these are rulings of court issues and these are court opinions. Well, these are going to apply to you, Tony, because of basically what you're trying to put out, and it's in your complaint. Okay, I understand that, but you guys are putting the cart before the horse. Before you can say all of that stuff, let's get down to brass tacks. Just show me that you guys have proof of jurisdiction, and I'll go ahead and I'll play ball with you guys. I'll go ahead and I'll pay my fine, or I'll go ahead and I'll drop the suit or whatever, as long as you guys can show me the proof, your evidence, which he cannot do. He will not answer to that at all, period.
Well, you then can file the motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct and quote him. Now, he's trying to use argument and legal citations as if they are evidence. Those are not facts that prove the proposition is true. And you're right. They're trying to they are deliberately conflating stare decisis with res judicata, as if you can settle an issue of fact by quoting a court case that had nothing to do with you.
Well, exactly. Let alone the fact that I have a declaration two declarations from both of the officers that showed up that day to take my vehicle. I also have declarations from the tow truck driver, and I have declarations from the owner of the tow company. All of them saying that, well, you know what, he the reason that his vehicle was taken was because of a registration issue. Okay, fine. If that's the case, again, so we don't put the cart before the horse, just show me brass tacks.
Yeah.
Where is your proof, your evidence, imperial proof? And in California, it's evidence code 702, and federal code is 602, but in California, it's 702. You have to have personal first-hand knowledge. Where are your specific articulable facts that this applies to me specifically because I'm in California? And he doesn't have a witness with any of that information.
No.
But yet these declarations that he has submitted to the court are supposed to stand and support his motion for summary judgment.
Well, you definitely have to be able to show that there is a factual dispute, and I think you've got that. He's trying to say that a written instrument applies to you, and he doesn't have, oh, damn it, we're out of time. You know what? Resend me the videos. I'd like to see them because I don't remember, getting an email and seeing that. But I definitely want to see. Oh, yes, yeah, and I'll check it out. But contact me off air about this. But I would file for sanctions against them for doing it. It's not prosecutorial misconduct, but it is an ethical violation because they are arguing without evidence and they don't have any facts to support their claim. So we're completely out of time. My name is Marc Stevens. This has been the No State Project for August 26, 2017, live from the Fortified Compound here in Mesa, Arizona. We will be live on the next show, which is episode 32 on August 30th. And so till then, salud.